Do you think Larry David, who was also in there dressed as a nun, also had trouble letting go of that? We mentioned clothes make the man. Do you
Yeah.
think that worked for him in that case?
Man, he
What was it like working with the guy?
come on. He's the greatest. And he's a big Stooge. He's a Stooge fan. And him and Pete Farrelly are good friends. But then Larry David has to show up and hang out with us for a couple weeks. He's like, I didn't realize it was going to take this long, But shit, I got to be out here in Atlanta. It's boiling hot. But at one point, there was this line where he kept doing he would just spit a different line every time. He was like getting hit in the head with something. He's laying there on the ground and he like comes to and he says, at one point he goes, Miami audiences are the best audiences in the world, right? And because he's loopy. Now he's playing a nun at the orphanage where the Three Stooges grew up, and I'm super intimidated by Larry David. He's a genius and stuff, but I walk up to him and I go, so what is he, like a Borscht Belt Florida comedian who is on the lam, and so he's dressing as a woman. He ends up at an orphanage. Yeah. Like, what's going on there? Yeah. And he looks at me and just goes, yeah. like I'm like, he's got some like actor motivation. Like, of course it's Larry David in a nun's habit, which is hilarious. That's such a Pete Farrelly casting thing. It's, but he's doing this whole like, what a warm audience, I'm like, oh, he's like this Catskill comedian who's been living in,
So that's what he's like living through in his mind, is just having fun with it, right?
I mean, that, and probably a combination of that and getting the lines right. Because he's like, what are we doing here? What is, just frustrated all day with what the heck we're trying to do.
What do you think that guy is one of the best improv people ever.
Yeah.
So what do you think makes him so good? Like, why is it so compelling to watch that guy?
Because he's a comedic genius. Like, he knows what he does. He's been a writer for 50 years or whatever. And he just happens to be that brilliant. I mean, I've gotten a chance just I did just an episode of Curb, a small part. And it's crazy what he sees. I don't know what he sees. As a matter of fact, so I auditioned for it, for Curb, like, 2 or 3 times, right? And never got anything. And then it was only after working with him on the Stooges that I got a call to do a bit part. But I remember auditioning. You go into that room, and the guys waiting are all people that you know. You're like, oh, I know them, I know her, I know him. And so I went in, I auditioned for this part, and the only thing I know in the thing is like, okay, so you really want to go to this play with me. You really want to go to this play. When you hear that I have an extra ticket, you sincerely want to think. And I'm like, got it. And so
that's the premise
of the scene.
And that's all you know.
It's all I know. And so he does his bit, and I'm just supposed to come in and interrupt. And I'm like, excuse me, I couldn't help but hear you guys were talking about, whatever the play was, or, Death of a Salesman. I'm a huge fan of that play. If you're looking for someone to take a ticket, I would love to go. My name's so-and-so, by the way. And he goes, I'm going to stop you. And I'm like, he goes, you truly want to go to this play? And I go, yes, sir. You really want to go? You would love to do this. I go, okay, let's try it again. So then he's like, no. And I go, hey, excuse me, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I couldn't help it over here. You have tickets to the thing. I am the biggest fan of that. I do the same thing. Mm-hmm. I'm going to stop you again. Okay. I mean, you really want to go to this? And I'm just like, he's fucking with me, right?
Yeah.
I remember Jeff Garlin was sitting there in the audition. He goes, he did it. He said it. What? Shut up. No, hold on. Listen. Mm-hmm. You really want to go? Okay. 3 or 4 times, there I am. I couldn't help but notice it. And then I do it again. I guess I shit the bed, because he looks at me and he just goes, okay. All right. Okay. Well, thanks for coming out. And that was it. And I didn't get it. So I don't know what the heck that guy's thinking. He's in the Matrix. I don't know what the heck Larry David sees. You know what I mean?
He wanted some kind of more desperation or something like this.
He wanted a level of sincerity that I thought I was bringing. And I guess I was wrong. I don't know.
Maybe go crazy. Like, what does it mean to really want?
Yeah. I should have grabbed him by the scruff of the neck and go, listen, Dad, you're bringing me to this fucking play. Yeah. I would have got the part. As a matter of fact, I heard about someone else, and I don't know who the heck this was. I forget who it was, but I've heard this story from a couple different people that there's this actor, and I don't remember who it was. If I did, I probably wouldn't say it out loud anyway. But
Brad Pitt.
it was Brad Pitt, and he was in this audition, and there it was out in the hall. He's like, "Holy shit!" George Clooney, Leo DiCaprio, and this actor went in and he did the thing, and Larry David was like, "Hey, why don't you try it again?" And he got like a couple takes in, and he went, "I don't think this is for me," and he left, which an actor never does.
Yeah.
And as the story goes, Larry David shouted after him, "I respect that," which I think is true, and I want to believe that entire story is true.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds like something Larry David made up to tell.
Bobby Lee told me that story, so we can't.